Hello everyone and welcome to this video. So today I'm going to be comparing my 4 different art journal prompt books that I have. So there are a ton of art journals out on the market, but I currently have 4. So today I'm going to be comparing Wreck This Journal, Create This Book, Anti-Journal, and This Is Not a Book. So those are my 4 different art journals that I have. If you guys have any recommendations for other good ones, then make sure to leave them in the comments. I would love to hear them and I would love to try them out because I am all for art journal prompt type books like this. I think that's it for now, so let's get on to the bulk of the video. So pretty much I'm going to be rating these books in 2 different categories. So I'm going to have a section for the quality of the actual book and then also the prompts that are in the book. So each of these 4 books is similar in the sense that they all have different prompts that give you ideas for how to do things on the page. So I know that Wreck This Journal has recently come out with a new one, Wreck This Journal in Color, where pretty much the author is saying that the goal of the book is not for it to be an art journal type book, but that's how I originally completed the book years back, so I wanted to keep that consistent in my review today, so just keep that in mind. So let's begin the review off with the journal that started it all, which is Wreck This Journal. I feel like everyone has a Wreck This Journal and tons of people have completed it on YouTube. So this is what mine looks like. I finished it probably 3 or 4 years back, but this is definitely one of my favorites. So I want to start by noting the rounded edges, and I feel like this is kind of underrated, but for me, I really like the rounded edges of this book. I think it makes it more of a book type of feel than rather just like a sketchbook. I know all of the other ones actually just have pointed edges, but I think the rounded edge is a really nice touch, and I appreciate that the author did that. I found that the quality was kind of in the middle. Pages are slightly textured, so I wouldn't recommend using some of your fancier markers on there, just because it could fray the tips of it, but the paper isn't that bad. And if we look at a page, there isn't that much bleed through, so you can pretty much use your markers. I just find that I like smoother paper just so I can use all of my markers on there, but I do understand that by using this type of paper it is more cost effective. So the actual book holds up really nicely. I didn't have any tearing in the spine of the book, other than me cracking it, which is one of the prompts in here, and also bending it because of the mass of pages in the book. But the quality is really good in this, and overall I have great things to say about the actual book. So now for the actual prompts. I really like the prompts in this book. I think that some of them are really easy to do, such as, so here's an example of a pretty easy one. Collect the letter W here. I think this one is pretty straightforward, but then again with the prompt you can go in a lot of different directions with it. But in this book there are some other ones where you could definitely make it more complicated and take the prompt in different directions. So for example, this one says document time passing, so you could really take this prompt in any different direction, and I feel like lots of people would have different takes on this, which I do like the creativity that is involved with this. But then again, that's not really what the author intended, but that's how I'm going to be looking at the book today. So overall, I think this is a great art journal for people who want to start out. I think the prompts are straightforward enough, and they also still provide enough room for creativity. The book is really good quality, and I know that they do have the Wreck This Journal in Color, which I haven't purchased, so I have no clue how that one compares, but that is the Wreck This Journal. So after completing my Wreck This Journal, I purchased This Is Not a Book. As you can see, this book is substantially larger than Wreck This Journal, just due to the amount of prompts in here. But this one is also by Carrie Smith, so the same author, and when purchasing it, I decided to get it just because it seemed the most similar out of her books to Wreck This Journal, since I really enjoyed that, and I wanted to do another type book. So starting with the first category of the quality of the actual book, I'm going to open it up. So this one is also of similar quality. As you can see, the spine is like barely holding in there. That's just due to the large amount of pages and how much stuff I put in each one. But the pages for this one have a pointed corner, which I do like the rounded better. The paper in This Is Not a Book I find is a lot smoother than in Wreck This Journal, so I think that is great. The quality is definitely a lot higher, which makes it better for using watercolors and markers because they really don't soak through that much at all. There is times though that I did double up on some papers or on some pages with paper just to make it easier to paint, or if I'm using a heavier medium and I want a little bit more stability with the paper, if I'm adding lots of layers of watercolor, for example. But yeah, the paper quality is really great in here. So for the prompts, these ones are definitely a lot more challenging than in Wreck This Journal. When I first purchased this, I kind of just looked at some of them. For example, this one is pretty straightforward. You're pretty much just supposed to make little books. So that was probably one of the first pages I completed. But as I finished more and more pages, I found that the prompts were becoming more and more challenging to complete just because I left the harder ones for the end. But I think that is great if you're looking to push yourself creatively and think of more ways to create art that's different than what you would normally create. So here is just a little mini flip through. If you guys want to see a full flip through of this, I actually have one on my channel. I will link it in the description if you are at all interested. So that is This Is Not a Book. So I think this is another great book. I think it's not as beginner friendly as Wreck This Journal, as some of the prompts are a little bit more challenging. So maybe if you're younger, I would recommend starting it with that one instead. But if you want to push yourself creatively, this is definitely a great book for that. So next we have The Anti-Journal, which is a lot less familiar than some of the other Carrie Smith books. This one's by a completely different author. I saw someone else on YouTube doing this, so I was curious and I decided to purchase it for myself and complete it. If you guys are interested in seeing me complete these pages, I actually have a full series on my channel. For this book, I am not as impressed with the quality of it. For when I was completing this, lots of the pages fell out, just probably due to the stress that was put on the spine. But then again, these other books, I didn't have that problem with it. The paper in this book I would compare similar to that of construction paper, which isn't my favorite. Marker really soaks through here, and so does pretty much any other medium except for pencil, crayon, or pencil, which is kind of disappointing. So I had to often layer on separate pieces of paper just so it wouldn't soak through to the other page. And just because of the roughness of the page, I definitely wouldn't recommend using any markers on it. It's really hard on the markers and it makes them fray, so especially not your good expensive markers. And for the prompts, I do actually really like the prompts in this book. I just found that the size of the book is quite a bit smaller than some of the other ones, was really limiting to what I wanted to do. And the paper didn't help with that either. I found the book to be very challenging to finish and I just wanted to move on to a different book, but I did push through and I did finish it. Due to the quality of the book, it really downplayed all of the prompts in it, unfortunately. So I think if the quality in this book could increase, the entire book as a whole would be a lot better. But if you guys are interested and want another art journal to complete, this is an option, but it definitely wouldn't be my first choice. And the fourth book that I am reviewing today is Create This Book, which is probably one of my favorites. So this is done by Mariah Elizabeth, and I'm sure you know of her on YouTube. So I got this book last year for Christmas actually, and I was just holding on to it until I finished my anti-journal, but I was super antsy to start it just because the prompts were really intriguing. I really liked the quality compared to the anti-journal, and I was just really excited to start a new book and start fresh. So the quality of this book is, I'd say, similar to Wreck This Journal. The pages aren't as good as This Is Not a Book, but you can use marker in here, but it does soak through a little bit, so I would recommend adding in a piece of paper if you want to do that. She has a bunch of tips in the front recommending different supplies to use, so I would recommend reading that if you purchase this. The paper is pretty smooth, so I would be fine using some of my better markers. I wouldn't probably use my best, but better than some of the other books I have shown. And the cover is made with this really interesting material. It's kind of rubbery and I really like it. I feel like it makes it more of a sketchbook type of feel, rather than just like a cheap book. I think it really makes the value of the book a lot better. So that's awesome. I'm not sure how I'm going to decorate the front though, so we'll see how that goes. And if you guys are interested in tuning in to seeing me create this, I have an entire playlist on my channel which you can watch. I will link that in the description box. So I think the prompts in this book are definitely the strongest part of it. I think that's also due to because it's made by Mariah Elizabeth, and she also completed, I think, Wreck This Journal, and this is not a book on her channel, so she really knows the ins and outs of good prompts to make an art journal, which is awesome. The prompts in here are simple enough that they don't require like super methodical thinking before creating the prompt, creating the art, but they also give you lots of room for creativity, which I really appreciate. And another thing that I like about Create This Book is that it's especially made for art journaling. So just like Wreck This Journal really isn't supposed to be for creating art, even though that's what most people do. This one is specifically for that, so she makes her prompts with space to use different types of mediums to suit your liking and to experiment. And overall, I think this is a great book for beginners, for anybody who wants a really good art journal. I think she did a great job on this. So here's a look at all of the books again. So just Create This Book isn't finished, which it hopefully will be in like a year or so. But my final verdict on my favorite one would probably have to be Create This Book. Comparing the quality of the actual book and the prompts inside, I think it's great overall. But with that being said, I think all of these are awesome books, and if you're looking to finish more art journals and have your creativity stretched, then I think any of these journals are great. But if you're looking for an overall great book, especially for beginners, Create This Book is definitely the way to go. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was a little bit different from what I normally do, but if you guys have any other art journal recommendations, please leave them in the comment section. I would love to hear your thoughts, and also which art journal you think out of these 4 is the best if you have done them all. And that is it for now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!